So today we're going to be looking at 13 things that are illegal in America, but legal here in Poland. The last two are quite shocking. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Starting with number 13, wearing helmets. There is no law requirement as an adult that you need to wear a helmet when you're on the street. I really like this law because it puts the responsibility on the person to make the decision, and if they get into an accident, it was their responsibility. I think in America, we have this weird culture where like they try to implement a lot of rules, so you have to wear a helmet, but if you're not wearing a helmet and you get hurt, then you can sue the person who hit you even though you weren't wearing a helmet, so it kind of like absolves you of responsibility. For example, in like California or New York, if you're seen riding around without a helmet, you can get pulled over by the police and fined for like $200 to $250. Ridiculous, I know. However, helmets are required, I believe, if you are under 16 years old, which I think is totally okay because we gotta protect kids. But if you are an adult, I believe that you should be able to make your own decisions. So if you want to ride a bike without a helmet, that's your responsibility. And if something happens, it is your fault. Here in Europe, or just generally all around the world, people are not driving that fast. In America, the speed limits are a lot higher because, you know, we're more car-centric. But here, you're gonna see people riding around in bikes or scooters everywhere without a helmet. And that's actually one of the best things to do in this country because a lot of the big cities have dedicated bike lanes everywhere. A lot of the cities are flat. Number 12, these Kinder Surprise eggs. I don't know what the deal is with these. I don't know why they are freaking banned in the US for some reason. It says that like the FDA and the US Consumer Product Commission banned candies that have non-nutritive objects inside of them. But I think it's because of the choking risks. This is the weird thing I don't get about America is people tell us that we have freedom, but they always try to make a bunch of laws to coddle us because they don't think that we have the responsibility to look over ourselves, right? It's a very weird dynamic. Okay, so number 11 is jaywalking. Culturally, I don't think Polish people jaywalk that much, or just Slavs in general. Most of the time, they'll wait for the lights to turn green before crossing, very similar to how it is in Asian countries. However, I think there is a bit of leeway with being able to jaywalk in certain situations. Like if you're trying to catch a tram and the tram is coming and you're in a rush and there's no cars around, if you run across the street while the light is red, people won't really say anything about it. But it's not like everybody is doing it, right? Whereas in America, I think it's a little bit more confusing because technically it is illegal to jaywalk, but also because the infrastructure is set up for cars, I guess it makes a little bit more sense. Because if you're trying to cross a road with like 4 or 5 lanes in every single direction, yeah, okay, I can see the danger behind that. But here the roads are not really that big. I did get yelled at by a police officer one time. My buddy and I, we were going to the football game and we crossed the street, there were no cars around. And the police officer yelled at us and we just, you know, pretended to be tourists and be like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't know. So I think the police officers may still give you a hard time for it, but I see people jaywalking almost everywhere here, but it's usually not like so egregious. It's usually like a pretty reasonable reason. Number 10, riding bikes on sidewalks. Apparently that is okay to do here, even though sometimes it can kind of get people mad if you're like biking in a walking lane, but also the reverse is true. If you're walking in the bike lane, people are going to be honking at you and yelling at you. But I think it's because the infrastructure here, the bikes lane and the walking lanes are so intertwined, so I guess it kind of makes sense. And I've seen even sometimes some of the delivery drivers will have like a moto or something and they'll be driving on the sidewalks. I don't know how legal that is or accepted that is. That doesn't seem to be that common like with a motorcycle, but bikes, very, very common. Just in general, something I notice about a lot of Polish rules is that here's the hard line of the rule, but there's like reasonable flexibility based on the situation to be like, oh, okay, if a reasonable person would act like this in this setting, then it's okay. But in a lot of American cities, that is actually legal. A lot of places, it's banned to have bikes on the sidewalk, and places like New York can even fine them for it. Casey Neistat made a whole entire video about this, like bike lanes. He got fined because he wasn't biking in the bike lane, but that's because there were so many cars and a bunch of things in the bike lane as well. Number 9, apparently pocket knives are not banned here, and we don't really have a problem with violent crime here in Poland. So, I mean, it's not the UK, right?
What?
Funny enough, swords, knives, and machetes aren't even considered as deadly weapons here in Poland. Whereas in America, depending on the size of the weapon, then you can run into some problems. I wonder if you can go to Japan and buy like a katana and bring it back to the US. I wonder what that process is like. That would be cool, but I can imagine you run into a bunch of issues as well. Number 8 is public drinking. And this is a little confusing because I've heard and seen mixed things. Apparently alcohol is banned in some public places, but there is a little bit more flexibility. Like for example, here in Warsaw, I think they recently put in a law where now you can actually drink by the river. But if you walk around this country enough, you see like alcohol bottles literally everywhere. And if you go to a lot of the spots like in the park or next to a river in a lot of these cities where people like to hang out, people be drinking there all the time. And there's nothing else to do in these small cities, so that's what people do. They smoke and they drink. So I wonder if how intense this law is enforced. But I know in the US, that's why when you see in like American movies and stuff, if people are walking around with alcohol, like in New York, they always have the brown bag around it. You're not allowed to show that it's alcohol because you can get fined for that. There could be a lot of reasons for that, but I think one of the big ones is the fact that, you know, US is a car culture. Europe is not really a car culture. So if you were to get drunk here in Europe, it's not like you're gonna be driving everywhere, right? So, you know, maybe that could be a reason for it. Polish people are alcoholics, which also, unfortunately, is true. Tell me I'm wrong. So it seems that Poland has pretty good free speech laws, and it's because their country really values freedom the same way Americans do, and that's something that I personally value a lot. However, it's pretty difficult to find good information out there because it feels like everything is biased one way or another. That's why I personally use Ground News. Ground News is awesome because they show you which news outlets report which news to give you an idea of which stories are biased one way or another. This story, for example, talks about how 180 migrants were able to cross into Poland illegally through a tunnel from Belarus. You can look at the bias comparison to see which news outlets reported on it, and you can see how factually accurate each of these outlets were. And nobody else seems to be this honest. One of the coolest features of this app is the blind spot feed, which highlights stories that are underreported by one side of the spectrum. They work on your web browser. They also have an app for your phone so you can stay informed no matter what. If you subscribe today, you get 40% off of their vintage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all of their features. So if you guys want to check them out, go to ground.news/west to get your 40% discount. Okay, so here's a random one. Apparently, foraging mushrooms is totally okay here in Poland unless you are doing it in certain protected like state parks. But in America, foraging for mushrooms is illegal completely. And a lot of people have been fined for collecting mushrooms without a permit. Number 6, the age for buying cigarettes and alcohol here is 18. And funny enough, because so many people smoke here, a lot of times you won't get carded if you try to buy cigarettes. But if you try to buy these heavily caffeinated drinks, then you do get carded by the Żabka owners. But in general, I find that people here are pretty lenient when it comes to just the sale of alcohol and the sale of cigarettes and vapes. And if you think I'm wrong, there's like a common stereotype here that people start drinking and smoking while they're like 13 or 14. How are they getting these cigarettes and this alcohol, right? It's just so ingrained into the culture. Whereas in America, you need to be 21 to drink. You need to be 21 to buy cigarettes now, I believe. But you can be 18 to vote and to join the military. Make that make sense. But in America, smoking used to be big, I believe in like the 50s or 60s. And I think that kind of went away. When I was growing up, I think alcohol was pretty big. And I think that's going away. But I think the thing now is vapes. Everybody be vaping. Here in Poland, everybody be vaping too. It's actually a really big problem, I think, because I notice a lot of people smoke here. Specifically, a lot of women smoke here. It seems to be a very big problem with the women. I know I'm going to get some heat for this, but I personally think when a woman smokes, it's very, very unattractive. I think when a man smokes, it's also bad because I just don't like cigarettes and vapes. To me, just don't make any sense. Come at me, whatever. That's my opinion. Number 5 is being able to gamble at the age of 18. Gambling isn't really a common thing here. There are like small casinos here and there that apparently are usually full of Asian people because Chinese people specifically, we really like to gamble. That is a big problem in our community. But I believe the legal age to gamble in the US is 21, which is weird to me because there's this weird thing going on in the US right now where everything is about gambling, especially sports. I can't believe how many sports promote sports gambling. This seems to be a really big problem with young men in America. I don't know what the heck is going on over there. That just is really weird to me. Number 4 is being able to have exotic pets. Here in Poland, there are laws that protect animal cruelty, and most people here don't have crazy pets. Even though I know a girl personally who loves snakes, and she told me a story where like she had the snake in the cage and she lost the snake one time for like 2 weeks, and she found the snake in like the drain in her sink or something, and and it was like totally normal. Cool girl, weird pet, whatever. But here in Poland, there is no blanket ban on exotic animals. So if you have the right permits and the right paperwork, you can have a raccoon or even a fox as a pet. I don't know if you can have a hedgehog here though, because I know hedgehogs are banned in America. Maybe hedgehogs are also banned here in Poland. I need to check in the edit. But in US, in many states, these animals are banned and illegal and you're not allowed to have them. I think the weirdest pet that I've heard people have in America are maybe like some lizards. I don't know if anybody has like a monkey or a fox. I think I've seen some people that have like pigs as pets, which apparently pigs are very smart and make very good pets. Number 3 is public nudity at beaches. So apparently Poland has a nudist scene here, and there are some areas around the Baltic Sea where, as long as you're following the rules, open nudity is totally okay. And this even carries over to the sauna culture. This is one of the like shocking things for me, because I remember when I went to the sauna for the first time, and then in order to go to a lot of the rooms, you have to fully take off your clothes, even the women, and it was very, very weird for me, but the people there didn't care at all. And actually after about 5 minutes, you pretty much get over it. Whereas in America, it's like there's this weird culture where everything is so hypersexualized, and you see how some of the women dress. They dress with practically nothing on.
Nothing at all.
People have this weird taboo about just nudity and sex in general. So there's like this weird dichotomy going on. And if you are nude in certain areas in America, you can actually get fined and you can go to jail for that. I'm not saying that you should be walking around naked trying to show your junk to kids. It's a big difference between European culture and American culture. Number 2 is legal marijuana. The system here is very different to how it is in the US. In the US, it's big. There's a lot of states that marijuana is legal now, and you don't even need a prescription anymore. You just walk into the marijuana shop and buy whatever you want. Here in Poland, it works a lot differently. Marijuana is technically illegal if you just buy it on the street, but it's actually very easy to get a legal prescription. You have to have a PESEL number, which is Poland's version of like an ID number, and you have to see a specific doctor for this medical marijuana. But once you have the prescription, you can go to most pharmacies here and they sell it to you just like a regular medicine. It was actually like a really interesting experience for me. Whereas in the US, marijuana is still a Schedule 1 drug, even though I believe Trump is trying to change that right now. What? You'll be surprised, a lot of people here in Poland smoke, and some of the most unexpected people actually. I remember I went to this pharmacy when I was picking up my prescription, and there was like old men there, old women there, young men, young women. Especially during the winter months, I believe it's quite popular because it be getting depressing here sometimes, man. And number 1, private sex work is actually legalized here. It's funny because in Poland, I don't think you're allowed to run brothels or pimp out women, but private sex work between 2 consenting parties is totally okay. I personally believe prostitution should be legalized everywhere in the world. Every single culture since the dawn of time have had wives and have had whores. You can ban prostitution like we have in the US, but then girls are just gonna go on OnlyFans and do the same thing anyways, right? So I think that prostitutes actually fulfill a very important part of society, but that's a topic for a different day. But apparently, because if you get money that way, it's not technically seen as like legal money, so maybe there's some loopholes around it. And that's fascinating to me because that's why the US is so sexualized, and you know, our media is hypersexualized. And also number 2, that's why we have the most OnlyFans girls. And now what I'm saying is that you might as well just make prostitution legal, because OnlyFans girls are kind of just doing the same thing anyways, right? So you should just let people be people. And it's actually funny because this is common in a lot of like Catholic countries around the world. Like for example, in Colombia, when I was there, prostitution was legal, and it was hush hush, and it was like this weird gray area, but you wouldn't go to jail if you were a prostitute or if you saw a prostitute. Which one of these surprised you the most? I know for me, the sex work one was definitely the most surprising. If you guys are thinking about moving to Poland, if you are a Polish immigrant or American or Canadian, I highly recommend setting up a free intro call here. We could talk about your current situation to see if moving to Poland makes sense for you.